Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome, folks, to Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. We got quite a show today, and boy, there's all sorts of issues that are out there on the table today. I mean, we got issues all over the place. And all due respect, thank goodness to our president-elect, Donald Trump. I mean, he's got the issue of the day today, and that is an issue that we have brought to the table right here in Portland, Oregon, and that is the issue of racism and hate here in the city of Portland, Oregon, okay? And it's all over. He brought the issue up after football season that just opened up, and it was all about the flag and this, that, and the other. There were different responding to the, but the bottom line is that he brought the issue up, and I think that was a good issue. We are talking about the issue of race now and hate. Very, very, very important. And so I want to thank the president for doing that. Bang, right off the bat. Okay, good. So what we're going to do now on this show, because it's the hottest issue going at this point in time, we're going to, I got a co-host here with Teresa, and then we got, Fred Stewart. Fred, there's my buddy Fred. Remember we did the show on, in fact, we talked about the whole issue of race and racism because of Fred. Fred brought the issue up. He's been bringing the issue up here in the city of Portland. Folks want to run back from it, but boy, I tell you, he's out there on social media, and he's got people talking about this issue. And our dear friend from the Willamette Week, who am I thinking about, Fred?
Mark Zussman. Nigel Jaquez.
And Nigel Jaquez. They're both from Willamette Week, right?
Yep.
One's owner and the other is writer.
Yep.
Right?
But we don't know Nigel's. I mean, Nigel, he's won 2 Pulitzers. For all we know,
that's what I'm saying.
He's got an ownership stake now, probably.
Oh, he's got an ownership stake now.
Probably.
But public surprise. Is that what you call it? Public surprise?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got big time stuff.
2-time Pulitzer winner.
Right?
Yeah.
And then this whole issue, I guess, came up with Fred. Why don't you just bring that up to date with us a little bit in terms of how this started off from the standpoint of the Willamette Week and you. I think it was at the Mac Club or something. You were there just for the benefit of.
Well, if you go to my website, fredstewart.com, the story is there. But
okay, but just briefly, how did that? What happened?
Well, Mark and I, we've known each other for a long time. I mean, we're not beer buddies or nothing like that. We don't, go out and have beers or nothing, but we've known each other quite a while.
Yeah.
And I think Mark was surprised, like a lot of white people are when they do something racist. I think he was surprised at me making the accusation that I feel he's racist. Mm-hmm. I personally feel Mark Zussman and Willamette Week, the management of Willamette Week, has a bias against black people. Mm-hmm. And another reason why I decided to write the article is, they are the type of racist people that black people in Oregon face the most. Mm-hmm. Mark Zussman is not a David Duker, even though David Duke would swear Mark Zussman wants to be like him.
But he's Jewish. He couldn't be.
Well, I know. That's why he would say, guys like Mark want to be like me, but they can't be like me because they're Jewish.
Right.
But, I mean, I think it's a very important part of the discussion about how racism is in Portland. A lot of white people like Mark Zussman do racist things, don't necessarily notice it, may not intend to do it, but do it every day. I mean, Mark doesn't hire black people to work for Willamette Week. We got some incredible things like Pitch Black and some black people doing business in Portland. We got a lot of vibrant economic stuff going on in the music industry and entertainment industry with, in the black community. Willamette Week doesn't cover it. We got the guy who's in charge of West Coast Rap Awards, pretty significant award, given out every year. This year he had people like Snoop Dogg and MC Hammer and other old people, in attendance. Willamette Week doesn't cover that. They covered, though, there's a white girl, good-looking little blonde girl, who they think is going to be the next Eminem. They did talk about her. Mm-hmm. She's okay. Mm-hmm. Not could be the next Eminem. But here she's got some Willamette Week is in a town with some bona fide West Coast rapping cred. Mm-hmm. They don't have enough, they don't have any connection to the black community, really. And then I started looking back at, the last 25, 30 years, and they really don't have any black leaders that they've liked, that they've really supported. And that's because not so much that they should like black leaders. I mean, I don't think any newspaper should have any favorites. I don't believe in that. I think they should be the critical eye for the community. But they don't have any relationships deep enough in the black community so that they can accurately write about what's going on.
Well, in all due respect, I fall in that category, but we're talking about your story.
I mean, look at you.
I got some major stories that I could talk about this whole business.
Well, not just that. I mean, how they treat you. I mean,
oh yeah.
You've been around for 40 years. You've met everybody. You've been around for everything major that's happened in the black community, let alone the Portland community, for the last 40 years. And they don't show any respect. Yeah. I'm not expecting them to be a lapdog to you or nothing, but to show a guy like you some respect. And the thing is, a lot of white people go through their lives every day being as racist as Mark Zussman and Nigel Jaquith, and not even notice it. I mean, right now, if you sit down with Mark Zussman and Nigel and say, Nigel, do you think you're racist? They're going to say no.
Of course.
Then you're going to say, Nigel, you are a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. And last year, you took advantage of a black man's daughter doing a campaign.
Aged 18.
19, to talk about something inconsequential.
Exactly.
And you lied.
Right.
And not only did you lie, you only used one source. I mean, you were so un-Pulitzer Prize winning level journalist. I mean, you must have felt nobody would care.
Right.
And why would they not care about you not being professional? Yeah. You must have said in your head, he's just a Negro. He probably said the NI word.
The nigger. You
yeah,
use the word nigger.
Yeah.
I mean, let's
nobody's going to care that I'm
about
stepping away from my
right.
cred. I mean, would Linus Pauling do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the other thing, Fred, is take a look at their recent article. Do you remember what it was about? The restaurants?
Yeah.
Support your Black Restaurant Week.
Yeah.
Why did that to me that's an insult? Why not support black restaurants, support black business? Why support black restaurant?
They could have done a whole article, a whole paper
incredibly condescending.
What I'm saying, but pitch black.
Yeah.
We got this thing going on with Stephen Green and a bunch of other people where they're pitching black entrepreneurs and new businesses in Portland.
Yeah.
That is huge. Now, they've done similar things for white businesses, white entrepreneurs.
Oh, very much so. Very
you
much
understand?
So. Very much so.
But here, they never phrase it. Support your white business.
Yeah, they don't do that. No, they don't do that.
On that particular point.
But hey, they don't hire black writers. No. They have no black staff writers at all.
I know.
They have, and then, they're not quite as bad as Oregonian.
Yeah.
Oregonian has this writer. She's a nice woman. I don't have anything against her. Casey Parks. She's a nice woman. Mm-hmm. Casey is. And you can tell she's an earnest woman. But they got a gay woman writing on the black community, a gay white woman. Now, a gay woman can do it, but understanding the complexities of homosexuality in the black community, if you're going to hire a homosexual person, I would at least hire a homosexual black person.
Right.
The sexuality of the reporter is not that important, but what I'm getting to is
that's a whole...
you're at least going to try to get somebody who can get into the community and get, and not from a condescending. I mean, Casey doesn't mean to do it.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I've talked to her. I've never actually met her face to face, but I've talked to her on the phone quite a few times, and I followed her on Facebook and Twitter, and I think she's a sincere person. But sometimes even Casey, who I'm sure is trying not to sound this way, I mean, she comes across so condescending toward black folks. And I don't think Casey means to be that way. And the thing is, what I'm getting to is, that's how our racism works in Portland. We get a lot of, Casey Parks racism. We get a lot of Nigel Jaquith racism. Nigel Jaquith racism is more intentional. Sure. That's the closest we get to the old Ross Barnett.
What do you mean by intentional? What do you mean by that?
I mean, he is a very professional guy. The more I learn about Nigel and his life, he's an incredible person. You understand? Is a very, very smart person.
Where's he from?
He's not from here.
He's not from here. I'll say this. I'm not going to say this because I don't want him knowing how I learned about him.
Is he a U.S. citizen?
But I will say, Nigel, in his own right, is an incredible person. A person of that intellect and that background, when they're racist, is intentional.
I think he's...
Where is he from? I'm still asking the question. Where is he from?
I'll let Teresa talk about it.
Where is he from?
Oh, God, I knew this, but I forgot.
He's not from Portland.
He's
not
from
down south?
No.
No.
Is he from north?
East. He's east.
East.
Of
Oh,
here.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Where is he, Fred?
No.
Where's he from?
That's another show.
I wouldn't say that
That's
he's,
another show.
You know,
That's another
I
show?
wouldn't say that he's an incredible person. I would say
wait,
he's
let
an
me-
incredible investigator.
And
He's an incredible investigative journalist. Okay, in so far as he has done some very important historical stories that were noteworthy, that got him a lot of attention. But I would not say he's the most creative writer in the world. And I would not say he's an incredible person, because his morality is questionable.
I will say that. I wasn't talking about that as he's a good guy in that
Right,
respect.
right.
I'm just saying, the more I learn about his life and the things he's done, different challenges and stuff, without the racism part of his life, he'd be somebody I would want a young person to know more about. You know what I'm talking about? Because he's done a lot of things. That's why I understand a guy like him chooses to be the way he is.
Right.
You understand? I mean, this is a calculating guy.
He picks and chooses his own pieces.
Yeah, he intends to be the way he is. When he's racist, he wants to be racist at that moment.
I don't
You understand? He is that type of white guy that will say, "Look, nobody's gonna." He's calculating. Nobody's gonna care. It's a black guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? They're not gonna care.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like that. He is that type of intellect.
Well, why would you make that kind of a statement?
'Cause I'm learning about
Is
him.
there a sampling or something? We talked
You know,
about your
I
daughter
did a bunch of
last
research
time.
on him too.
Did you?
About a year and a half ago, I read everything.
And
I
you know what
could
I'm
on
talking
him.
about. Calculating.
He has some interesting things that have happened to him in his past. He lost his parents, both in some kind of an accident, very young.
Really?
And I think that is what drives him in a way. He's a very bitter person, I think, and he really gets off, I think, on ruining people, because I think there's a part of him inside that's not happy. But that's just my opinion.
You know, and it's not. I can't disagree with her.
Now that we've sort of brought this
I
thing
can't, it's
up,
not so much I can't
Well,
disagree, but I'm
well,
going to say,
okay, well,
Bruce,
wait.
he's like you.
Okay.
He has a good resume.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I would agree.
Well, let's talk about this. Then we've talked about this peace aspect of it. You talked about Salisbury. Now, what about where do we go from here? I mean, have you seen any improvement as a result of? We reached out, by the way, to Willamette Week. You know, we reached out to him. I basically invited Willamette Week last time around, but.
And do you remember what I predicted 2 weeks ago?
Yep.
They wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
It's too early, but I will say I've enjoyed the conversations. A lot of people who've known Mark and Nigel, both here and other places, have contacted me. Because this article has been read over 25,000 times now.
Yeah.
And
it's been shared like
over-
almost 400 times.
Yeah, almost 400 times. It's been
On
incredible.
social
But what
media.
I'm getting to is
Good on.
what I've liked is it started a great conversation, and some of the most impactful things on me personally has come from white people, giving me their reflections.
And the thing is, Fred and I were talking, and he said he's had several people call him up and say, I won't read Willamette Week anymore. I had a friend on my Facebook last week who messaged with me and said, you know, I've noticed the quality of their journalism just sinking the last 5 years. And he said, I read the article by Fred, and he said, I'm never going to read Willamette Week again. I mean, you know, so we're both getting those messages from people.
Yeah.
Well,
You
but
know?
that wasn't the intent for my article, but
there's a major concern here because we're getting right into politics. We've got the president. You know, we got that whole issue of race. I mean, in fact, in all due respect, we don't have a situation where we have a president that's basically just on his own, just doing the work. You know, in all due respect, we still have a runoff, so to speak. We got a president who's running for office, i.e. Donald Trump, even though he's president, and CNN News.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other
Bruce,
side
you're
of
hitting
the
on
deal.
something. One of the reasons why I wanted to, what really made me decide I wanted to hopefully get this conversation going. I mean, when I'm at Week, what I've learned about Mark and everybody, they really count on their endorsement season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
As far as part of their business model, as far as their credibility of the organization.
Yes.
It's their flagship period of time where they're doing business.
Exactly.
And you see, the thing is, David Duke and Donald Trump has said something that bugs the hell out of me. And this is something Donald Trump hasn't said it very much lately, but he said it a lot last year, is that they all think like me. They all want to do what I'm doing. They're just not going to do it. You know, they're chicken.
Yeah.
They're cowards. And the thing is, you know, you look at who these guys. I mean, what's an endorsement worth from the Oregonian or Willamette Week when they have no minorities in the room, when they do things that are consistently racist? I mean, if you're racist, what else are you? You know what I'm talking about? Are you against Catholics? I don't know. I mean, I haven't picked up on that yet. But what I'm trying to say is they're an organization that accepts discrimination. So what is an endorsement from any one of those papers? What is it really worth?
Yeah.
Are they saying, hey, we think these people are cool because they think a lot like me?
Yeah.
Well, how many people want to think like racism, want to be racist like Mark Zussman? How many people want to be racist like Nigel Jaquise? You understand what I'm talking about? I mean, if Nigel says, I like this politician, this white politician even, let's say they're white,
Right.
what are they really telling us? Are they telling us they like this person because they feel they're going to be better for the community? Well, if you're racist, what are you going to endorse? You're going to endorse other racist people, people that get along with you. You're some people that you like. And it goes in other areas like that. And I'm like, guys, I'm not telling people, make your own decision if you want to.
The only problem I have with that, and the thing that really gets me upset, is that Zussman is Jewish. And Jewish have always identified with blacks. When I think about the NAACP, the origination, this, that, but in all due respect, when they go in a room, they're like a chameleon, they can change.
Hey, Jewish community was very heavily involved in the civil rights movement
very much
with Martin Luther King.
And I know a number of Jews here in Portland, Oregon, that I know and respect. But in all due respect, when I found out that Mark was Jewish, that bothered me. In fact, I reached out to him when I was at the Observer. When I got the Observer newspaper, and I was a publisher, the whole idea was having to call another newspaper and say, hey, let's sit down with me, because I'd never been in that business before. Yeah. But I guess who did kind of like, I did talk with somewhat a bit, and that was Stickle. Out to Oregon, but he was a former Marine.
Did Zussman return your call?
No, he never returned the call or whatever.
And you see
because he's an elitist.
That's
it's not just that. You see, what bugs me about that is, Bruce, you've run for office several times.
Yeah.
Hold it. Yeah. You've done a lot in the city. You've provided housing. You've had this television show. You're a prominent black person in that there's not any other black person like you that's in our lifetime or before our lifetime has been like you. And even if he disagrees with you, doesn't like you, to send an email or a text message and say,
courteous.
To be courteous. See, the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, this is a common courtesy that he would offer. And as a matter of fact, his partner's wife, who's our current attorney general, would expect. But you see, he doesn't feel he needs to do that. And now he could be just an MF, a jerk. Or maybe he said, Bruce is just a darn darky. Nobody's going to care.
Say the right word.
Well, nobody's going to care if I'm rude to Bruce.
Did he call me a nigger?
Well, he could. I don't know. I wasn't in the room. But what I'm trying to say is, these are things we don't know. When white people like this do stuff like this, who, we don't know, maybe they are saying it.
Yeah, right.
You understand? Yeah. Why do a guy like him would expect that somebody like you and me would give him the best benefit of the doubt? You understand what I'm talking about? A person that is a professional, not racist, would want to make sure there's no doubt. He's a professional. He runs one of the most, read newspapers in Portland, one of the most read newspapers in Oregon. Just his honor, his personal professionalism. No, I'm going to call up Bruce and say, Bruce, I'm not going to be on your show. Or send a text or an email.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for the invitation. Even if he didn't want to, like, are you kidding me? And no way I'm going to go on that show. He would respond and do that.
I would have loved it. I would respect him for it.
Yeah.
Because in all due respect, check this out. And the last candidate, when his wife ran for Attorney General, I interviewed her at Jansen Beach. I was the MC. And I gave her the opportunity to speak, and I introduced her and gave her an opportunity. But again, like I said, it was just the Voters Digest, and I was doing the right thing to do, okay? But here, like you said, and I will say, every time that I've run for office in this city, I've not been respected. I've never gone to any editorial boards, whether it been the Oregonian.
Same thing with me.
Whether it been the Tribune.
I've never met with the Oregonian editorial board, ever.
I've never.
Ever. and then you're going to love this. Last year when I was running for office, Stewart Edmonds was running.
Yes.
Okay. Stewart published a couple of articles about his position and things, and that's fine.
Right.
Op-eds. We decided to do the same thing. So we wrote an op-ed about homelessness, right? Our op-ed. We called them like the same day that Stewart Edmonds was out. Same day the article was in the paper. You know what they told us? We're not allowing candidates to write op-eds this season.
What?
They literally said that to us. That was Ron Buell and CW and a couple other people. And it was, we had the speakers on in the,
So basically
the
they
car.
lied.
And they lied to us straight up. The editor said, Fred, we've decided we're not going to have any op-eds from any candidates this year.
But they
I'm
let
sorry.
They let Stewart Emmons.
Stewart's was in there that day.
Right.
That's why, hey, we're gonna throw our.
He had access.
He
had access.
Well, he's white.
Yeah, that's right.
They're all white.
Yeah, white. Yeah,
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and the thing is, if you ask that editor, if what you did was racist, he would say, "Well, no, we just didn't want anything from Fred." Well, you didn't say that. You said we're not allowing anything from any candidates this year. Okay, so editor, how does this look? You got Stewart Emmons in there, who's white, with his article in there.
Right.
A black guy calls up, and you say we're not letting any candidate. So one, you've lied to him.
Right.
Yeah. So why should the black guy assume? I mean, I would have been respectful. He said, "Fred, we really don't like you. We don't want you to have anything in our paper." Now that I would have, it would have hurt my feelings. But I would have expected. Yeah. I would have walked away thinking, "Is this racism?"
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
The comfort zone that a lot of white people, like the Oregonian, like Willamette Week has, with racism is insane. Yeah. I mean, George Wallace is probably jealous of him. He's probably like, "Man, if I'd been smart, screw being governor. I would have been a journalist, especially in Oregon, man. Yeah. I would have had ride herd." Yeah. You know what I mean? Because
but you got to understand, you're black. You can't be no journalist. How the hell are you gonna be a journalist?
Oh, there's a lot of black journalists around.
I even run a paper.
They're in New York.
There are some
in
black.
New York and Chicago.
There are some black journalists that have said that they tried to work for the Oregonian and Willamette Week, and you can't even get a return phone call.
Well, and another thing is, like, if you're any kind of an odd writer like I am, I mean, I've submitted to the Oregonian and Willamette Week. They don't touch me. They are not interested in me. I've written some really good opinion pieces, sent them to the Oregonian. They didn't publish me.
I mean, it's their paper. If they don't want to publish you, they don't want to publish you. But what I'm getting to is there's this complete slice. No blacks. No Negroes. I mean, what's funny? Donald Trump, since he became president, has hired more black people to work for the presidency than the Oregonian and Willamette Week have ever hired in black staff writers.
Right.
It is easier to become a black astronaut or work for Donald Trump than to work for the Oregonian or Willamette Week. I mean, right now, if a black kid, friends, white and black, if you've got a black baby in front of you, look at that baby, and you know what you know? Over the next 35 years, it is more likely that black kid's going to work for a white supremacist like Donald Trump or become an astronaut. They have a better shot at going to Mars.
There's a lot wrong with Portland.
Now I gotta remember. I gotta remind you also too. You didn't mention this paper. I mean, we're gonna be
the Tribune's up there too.
Okay, the Tribune's sitting up there.
They don't have any black folks.
Dr. Pamplin has always been around. Has been a very straight up kind of a guy, and at least he's making it free.
Yeah.
He's allowing it to be free. Doing the same thing with Willamette Week. But that again, that's another issue with that. And the point I'm making about that, I can remember when I ran for the mayorship aspect of it, and OPB took a poll, and I ended up at part of the top 4. And Anna Griffith, who at one point in time was working for the Oregonian, would not even allow me to come and be interviewed.
Sure.
And they waited months, if you will, before they gave me the opportunity.
See, that hurt my feelings because as Anna Griffith,
and it was the Tribune that allowed me, that basically got together with KOIN.
I mean, I was really disappointed when that happened because Anna's a good writer. I like Anna Griffith, and Anna being a lesbian woman, and coming from her background, I was so disappointed that she was not offended. You understand? I'm talking about person because you know what? There but go for the grace of God, go her. You understand? You know what I mean? But this is maybe one of the few times she gets to be white privileged.
That's right.
Or whatever. But the thing is, she has faced racism. Not so much racism, but discrimination.
Right.
You know she has.
Well, I know. mean, I gave her a story.
And she knows about it.
But the bottom line is that she will never pick up her phone. She never even called me or nothing of that nature. It was just bang. That was it. And even when I went to KOIN, I did the piece of KOIN. They would not allow me to be a part of the Wheelers group. They had 2 sets of group, and they put me over here. I had no background. I mean, they couldn't talk about housing or whatever.
But you see, what these white people are ignoring, and I want to bring this up again, and they do this a lot with black people, whether they like you or not, whether they agree with you or not, when it comes to the small black community, you are a unique individual with your own influence in the community, and you've done a lot. You deserve some respect. Plus, you're as an elder, they don't need to disrespect you.
Right. Tell you what, that was a good note on that note. Well, hey, thanks very much for the update, guys. Appreciate that very much. Okay, good. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to bring. And by the way, just so happened, what about that city council race? Are you still on board on that piece?
Still looking at it. Still talking to people.
Boy, I tell you what.
We're
going to need a good guy. In all due respect, we're going to need a good guy for that fish piece. I mean, I don't know where you are on that piece, but anyway, I thought I'd bring that point up.
All right.
Good. Hold on for a minute. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with our guests.
Okay.
Take care, buddy. Welcome back, folks. Again, Bruce Broussard, Portland Observer. Gee whiz, boy, I'm getting good. I got so much of this stuff in here, man. Anyway, back with the Oregon Voters Digest. Hey, welcome aboard. Hey, this particular segment, what we're going to do, we're going to give you sort of a little update on what's happening in Oregon, because that's what state we're living in, okay? Oregon, and then more specifically, the largest city that we have in the state of Oregon, Portland, Oregon. And I got two guys here that knows exactly where they are. They're out there. I mean, they know exactly what's going on. They know where the bones are hidden. They know where we're going. They know the direction we're going. They know where to get your jobs, the whole 9 yards. Am I right, guys?
Yeah.
I got Cameron Whitten from the Portland, right? Portland, Oregon.
I'm not. I live in Portland, Oregon.
But anyway, you got to get you're going to talk. We're going to talk.
I am now working. I'm on my second week with the city of Portland.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Portland, city.
Sure.
You're the man. You're the man. You've been around, okay? Then we got Scott here. He's from the state, from Salem aspect of it. In all due respect, Scott has he's a legislative aide, right? And that was for Senator
Alan DeBoer, freshman from Southern Oregon.
Yeah. So Scott's been around, and you've seen him on the show aspect of it. So what we're going to do, we're going to give Scott an opportunity to give us an update of what's going on, whatever he wants to talk about. Just give us an update on what is the status of Salem from a good working class citizen all over the state. We want to know what's going on and where are our priorities and where are we going. Where are we going, Scott?
We just had a round of legislative committee days take place this last week.
Okay.
And one of my focuses there, Senator Floyd Przansky from Eugene, has convened a work group along with Josephine County Circuit Judge Pat Wolke, who's a good friend of mine going way back. And what they want to do is update the state's civil commitment statutes because they're from the 1970s and a lot's changed between now and then in terms of mental health and our understanding of it. And some of the statistics they mentioned were just absolutely appalling in terms of we have this percentage of the population has serious mental illness, yet they're 17% of our jail population and growing. And the fact of the matter is, we have a lot of people in our prisons and in our jails who simply do not belong there. There are people with untreated mental illness, but the problem with our system that we have in place right now is that there are no avenues for these people to get help until they're already in the criminal justice system, at which point it's too little too late. I remember I covered a murder trial in Grants Pass several years ago, and watching the defendant's sisters on the witness stand crying, saying, "We tried to get him help. Nobody would help us." And then the guy ended up killing the former mayor of Cave Junction, and then committed suicide in prison before he was ever able to stand trial. So we've got a huge problem on our hands, and these guys are going to be working hard to see what it is that we can do. Judge Wolke wanted to model it kind of after that county's drug court, which has been a hugely successful program where, the war on drugs, we've seen a lot of people incarcerated over the years for nonviolent drug offenses. We realized that, well, maybe you pull some of those folks out of that system and try to get them the help that they need rather than going at it from a punitive perspective. If you're already having mental health issues and you end up in prison, it is not going to make you better. And the same thing goes for drug abuse. So it'll be interesting to see the work that they do on that over the next few months, but I'll be participating.
Where are most of these people are as far as the state of Oregon? Portland, Oregon, or Salem? Where are these folks that we're having these issues as far as mental illness?
Well, it's everywhere. And that's the problem that we see is that you have a facility like the state hospital in Salem where it's all centralized. But if you live on the other end of the state, your family, your support network is on the other end of the state. What they want to see done instead is keep it more community-based where people have that support network, have access to resources in the community. So that was one of the big things we worked on. The other is, it's been in the news a bit that a cap and trade bill is going to be coming up in the February short session, except they're calling it cap and invest. And they tried to get it passed this last session. It wasn't anywhere near ready yet. And so they're convening a series of work groups on that. It's pretty ambitious, though. So they have 4 different work groups. And I sat through the first couple of them the other day, where you get the presentation from DEQ, but all the work groups have different interests represented on them, and they're very large work groups. So the idea is that these huge groups of people are going to be able to come to consensus on this thing in the space of a couple of months worth of meetings. We'll see how it goes. But whether or not they'll have something that's workable, that's palatable, and be able to achieve consensus among that many different various stakeholder groups remains to be seen.
What does that mean from a legal standpoint, cap and trade, to the average person out there? Its impact to them and their wallet.
Well, essentially what it's going to boil down to is there are around 42 businesses that are going to be targeted for it, and they're going to hope to raise something like $700 million. And you do basic division and say, okay, that's about 16.6
And these are the larger businesses, primarily?
The larger polluters, they say.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll raise this pile of money, and then it'll go towards green energy jobs. That part's not very well spelled out, though. And what was troubling to me is that we have a history in this state. You have something like the business energy tax credit that got to be this huge scandal. You got people actually going to jail for it. There was an audit that was done of that program a couple of years back and spelled out and said, okay, well, here's what they should have done. You needed financial controls in place. You needed regular performance audits, number audits, all these recommendations. None of that was in the cap and trade bill that they're using as the model moving forward. The one that was from the regular session that we just adjourned in July. So I would like to see more accountability measures put into it than are currently in it. But where that draft is at now and what it ends up being in November, by the time they turn it into legislative council to draft a bill for the short session, it can go any number of ways.
Cameron, any questions for that? I'm going to go both ways. Once you make your presentation, I'm going to ask Scott to ask you a question.
I'm curious to hear what he has to say about
anything of concern you might want to share with him?
I think he's had a very busy legislative session,
okay.
for sure. And if I have any issues, I'll see you next year.
Yeah,
Okay,
you will always be greeted warmly.
Thank you.
Great. We want to bring Cameron in.
I just have one friend in Salem.
What we'll do, we'll let Cameron go, and then we'll kind of open it up a little bit between all three of us, both of you guys. Okay, Cameron, you got a new job.
I do have a new job.
What's your new job?
Somebody actually thought they would hire me.
Oh, wow. About time.
So I just finished my second week with the City of Portland. I serve as advocate for the East Portland Action Plan.
East Portland Action
Plan. So that is a special project that was first convened in 2007. The mayor at the time, Tom Potter, Multnomah County Chair at the time, Ted Wheeler, and then former House Speaker, now U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley, came together and they started having conversations, which by 2009 eventually led to the City of Portland adopting a very broad sweeping document called the East Portland Action Plan.
What does that mean?
So the East Portland Action Plan is a document which is used to guide the city and local stakeholders to better understand what needs to be done in order for East Portland to have equity and parity within the region. And so, many of the neighborhoods east of 82nd Avenue, also the northeast side of the city of Portland, past 102nd Avenue, that's East Portland. So many of those neighborhoods were incorporated into the city in the 1980s and the 1990s. And so before that, they were overseen mostly by Multnomah County.
Okay.
And so they were very suburban and had their own loose regulations, much different than what the city of Portland has.
Okay.
Since that time, the area is no longer suburban. It is very much a huge part of Portland as a city. It's urbanized. Over 25% of the city's entire population is living in East Portland. And so the demographics have changed. We're seeing people who have less income. We are seeing a lot of immigrant refugee people in the area. There is an extremely high representation of people of color, almost twice as much as the city of Portland itself. And at the same time, as we have all these new people coming into this area, it's still been designed as a suburban place. So we have these big arterials which people use to get through the neighborhood, and yet all these people who might not have access to cars and who need to walk around do not have sidewalks. And so many of PBOT, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, many of their high crash corridors are in East Portland. And so and that's just one example of different issues happening there. Right now, we're going through a huge issue with displacement with the housing crisis, as more people who are lower income are being pushed away from the center city. They're moving out into East Portland, which is creating this ripple effect of more people being displaced. That's another big issue. Food deserts are a big issue. Having local jobs based in East Portland is also another issue. So since most of it is focused in downtown, is focused in what's the word I'm looking for? Manufacturing. So a lot of manufacturing is focused in very specific hubs, for example, Columbia Corridor or Washington County. So it's not accessible because for many people who rely on bus transit, it's really easy to get east and west, but you can't get north and south. And so there are a lot of issues with accessing opportunity in East Portland, mainly because of how the city how the area of East Portland was first structured, and now that's under this new ownership by the city of Portland. The investments needed to make sure that there's equity there have not yet to happen. And so the East Portland Action Plan has over 200 strategies. Precisely, they have 236 strategies that outline ways that we can work on economic development, the environment, public health and housing, community building, and other things that can be done to make sure that East Portland is as vibrant and as accessible to opportunity as it deserves.
Wow. Is there? What about a representative for North, South, and West? Was there such an animal?
So I
Like yourself?
am not sure if the East Portland
Okay.
Action Plan has made a position on that. So
Okay.
I serve as a
You're
servant.
East, but you say
so they
East.
have a
They have to-
theory of change model, which is
okay.
very much about empowerment of East Portland and its residents. And so I do not speak for them. They have over 80 people who come to their monthly meetings. You're invited. Fourth Wednesdays of the month. They'll feed you and everything like that. Their meetings always end on time, so they're very organized. And
You had
my
me at
role,
they'll feed you.
exactly. Come all the way up from Kaiser for a free meal. It's worth
We'll
it.
do that, Scott.
No, I can't cook.
You really need longer government meetings? Sure, you're
Probably
done
not the
with
last
that.
thing I want to do.
Exactly.
Well, going back to some of the things that you were doing, and you were talking about various sites and various issues like transportation, whatever. Foster Road is a biggie.
Sure.
That's a big issue
Yeah.
aspect. Of it. Where are you on that? I remember that when the mayorship thing was.
So
going.
I've only been here for 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks?
So yeah, you can't ask me any question.
Yeah, because you've been around. You've been
I
around.
have been around.
No, you've been here two. Let's see.
Since
I said
2009.
Right. That's right. 2009.
I was first on your show, I think, in 2010.
Exactly. And
Wow,
you were very
I'm old.
familiar with a lot of these issues. 'Cause you ran for mayor
I'm getting
too.
gray like you.
You
It's
ran
true.
for mayor too. So
It's
you
true.
got me?
I'm a failed
But
mayoral candidate.
Because Foster Road is still a major issue.
Yeah.
People want to walk and this, that, and the other. It's very, and
Yep.
like you said, people are shifting over, and that's
Yeah.
it. The whole issue of crime and everything else is going that way. And the homeless. Now that was the other area. Are you going to be doing anything from the stand? Are you going to be responding to the homeless issue? That's an unsolvable issue in the city of Portland.
I would not say it's unsolvable.
That's why.
but it's
That's why
going
they
to take.
got you.
It's going to take
That's
a
what I'm
lot
asking.
more backbone than it currently
Okay,
has right now.
okay.
And I think for me, it is sad as somebody who was formerly homeless, who had to use resources in Portland. In my teen years, stayed in a shelter. Now being an activist, for me, it's really sad to see a lot of people who think they're very liberal and have an animosity for poor people, and they think that they don't, and they just don't realize how awful they sound when they paint poor people all in the same light and don't realize how they have access to so many things that other people do not. And if we really were progressive as we say we were, we would not go out of our way to deny people their basic humanity. And so for me, I think that there is truth to a solution that can be found. But the problem is that we live in a political world and not everybody wants to get behind a solution, especially if the solutions are proposed by those directly affected.
Right.
So much of my work, and why I'm so glad to be in my position with the East Portland Action Plan, is making sure that all of our decision makers understand that if we're talking about addressing these societal issues, let's listen to the people most directly impacted. Let's make sure they have representation on these decision-making whatevers, We should not have a homogenous city council. Fortunately, that's changing.
Yes,
it's changing
right.
slowly,
Right.
but we needed that change to happen yesterday.
Right.
And so on the issue of homelessness, we need to stop putting all these plans together and all these committees and hiring all these SARs to be head of these agencies, and yet we never allow people who've experienced homelessness or who consider themselves homeless to have that seat at the table.
Well, you know, the unique thing about you is that that's your resume. You got that resume before you got this position.
Yes.
And that's that's one of the reasons why
lived experience is so important.
That's what I'm saying.
And that should be on a resume.
Saying most of them haven't done that.
Yeah.
You know, you elected, we have an election.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's not the resume. A lot of these folks, sure, they want to vie for leadership, but they haven't had the exposure. Here's
How
a guy
many jobs
here.
have you looked at that ask
right.
for lived experience?
That's right. That's right.
It's always professional experience.
That's
like
right.
we're professionalizing poverty or homelessness or
And
mental health
we've been
crises.
institutionalizing all these things for a long time too. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if you have these statistics off the top of your head, but I've heard about this. A considerable percentage of the school-age children in Portland are in East Portland.
Yes.
Yet
I believe
that
it's like
area
40%.
of town has a disproportionately few amount of actual physical schools.
So I don't know about the school number, but I believe it's 40% of school-age youth do live in East Portland. So many, because I'm at the age where I need to start thinking about if I'm going to go into home ownership. And there's no possible way I can get anything west of 82nd Avenue. So for a lot of young families who are not having kids, they don't have the income of their parents. And so many of them are in East Portland. In terms of number of schools, I'm not sure. I do know that we have many school districts there. And so we have Reynolds, we have a little bit of Centennial, we have David Douglas, and we have Park Rose. Those are our main schools.
I heard the same about parks too.
Yes,
That
we
for
have
as
huge
many
parks deficit.
children as there are in that part of town, there aren't nearly as many parks as there should be
Yeah,
to serve that population.
it's true.
And that a lot of the resources tend to go west of the river where you say, hey, wait a minute, this is where all the investment has been. This is
Yep.
where the capital is. This is... And I've been hearing that griping for a long time,
Yeah.
that East Portland just doesn't get what they've pretty much been promised my whole life.
Yeah.
When he makes that point about the real estate, it's not there anymore. Well, it's not there on the west side either. So what do we do? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
What do you mean?
What I mean by that is that we're talking about housing. Just like you were talking about the housing aspect of it. The real estate has gotten so valuable aspect of it. It's pretty well taken up. I have to say that when Charlie Hale was here, he issued out a lot of permits. That's where all the high rise went up. And there's still a lot of permits. So you can't buy. People in fact are being gentrified because they can't pay the taxes. It's not so gentrification is not just quote just being thrown out. It's just, hey, I just can't afford to live here anymore.
Well, plus what people don't realize, when you're the average voter and you get all these bonds and levies before you, you say, okay, that sounds great, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, by the way,
That's
that gets tacked onto your rent.
That's right.
If it's all done through property taxes,
Yes.
which it is, your landlord gets a higher bill and he
right.
passes that on to you. That's part of the cost of doing business.
Exactly. In fact, we had one of the largest bond measure on the school piece, the school bond, Portland Public Schools, just recently.
Right. You're
That's
going to
a
pay
big-
for that one
that's
way or
big
the
money.
other. And higher rent is one of the ways that you pay for
Very
it.
much so. So anyway, I want to throw that out to you because you got a big job. I mean, they've got the right person. Trust me. It shouldn't have been a part-time job.
You're too kind.
It shouldn't have been a part-time
So
job.
it's not really a part-time job. So East Portland Action Plan has had a full-time advocate for
Okay.
about 10 years now.
Okay.
And so that person has gone part-time and we are now sharing. So I'm a co-advocate.
No,
and so for me, going from an executive director to now being a co-position is really, it's different. But it's also super relaxing because it's taxing.
But luckily, they were able to pick you up because you got the resume.
Yes.
It's a different-
Well, I gotta say,
That
a lot
makes
of
a lot.
nonprofits refuse
makes
to
a
give
lot.
me an interview.
Well,
as being
I can see why.
Black Lives Matter,
Yeah,
99% person
I
being
can-
in the streets.
I can
People
see.
don't want
No.
a voice of truth. People want someone with courage who understands the urgency of fighting for what's right. Because they see that as a liability. They see that as, oh, you might turn off funders, or oh, you might not be controllable. And I think that I'm finally with a group of people who know what it's like to be ignored and who knows that you can't play nice if you want to make immediate change happen. And so I'm really lucky. Many nonprofits, I think, would look at my resume and they'd still throw it out just because I'm, quote unquote, a radical.
No, you're not a radical.
I know I'm
No,
not.
you're talking about solutions. This is all economics.
Yeah.
You understand? It's about solutions.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a solution kind of a mode because you've already had the experience. You've got the answers. And then over here, you got situations from an economic standpoint. Let's just keep it the way it is.
You're going to have the mayor start calling me now?
Well, let's just keep it the way it is, Mayor.
Ted Williams be like, Bruce Broussard said you have all the answers,
Hey,
Cameron.
well,
What do I do about this?
But at least he hired you.
Make his position full time.
No, my
Yeah.
boss is Chloe. Ted had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but he's still the mayor.
Yes,
He
but
can
Chloe
take-
Daly is the commissioner for ONI. So
but guess what?
Eport's an action
But
plan.
he can take that bureau back anytime he wants.
Okay, just to fire me? Just to fire me? I don't
He
think
can
so.
take that bureau back and say, well, I want him to work for me.
Ted doesn't want me working for
For what
him.
it's worth,
Really?
I've always thought the city's whole government structure was ridiculous and kind of
If
works
Ted ever
against
messed with me, I'd be parking on his front yard.
Look, guys, I've got 2 minutes. This has been awesome. This has been awesome to both of you. I mean, hopefully you'll consider us here at the Oregon Voters Digest for the futures because we got campaigns coming up. This and the other. I'd like for you to consider coming back and give us a little update. And
Can I do one more
educate-
shout out?
Go on, real quick.
So my main job is grants management, and so if you live in East Portland or you have work that you do in East Portland, my role is going to be giving out managing $100,000 worth of funds, which are given out by East Portland members. So email me Cameron.Whitten WHITTEN at portlandoregon.gov. That grant is going to be public in the next 3 days, so Wednesday. So we'll have it open until mid-November.
And you'll identify those people who will be
You
having
can
that
write it
money.
in any language. You can write it, you can type it up. It can be Russian, Chinese, Spanish, whatever. We'll
Good.
take your grant.
Good. And like you know how it is. Hopefully you'll come on the show and say, okay, fine, Bruce, this is how we're going to be spending this $100,000. And this is going to be the benefit to livability in our city.
I don't choose. It's the East Portland.
No, but once that
Action Plan
decision is
members.
made, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I'd like for you to identify who those folks are going to do.
Oh, sure, I can do that.
We can do this.
Yeah,
on the
we
show.
love to showcase
We're
the work
doing
that we're
show.
doing.
Okay.
Some sidewalks would be great.
Okay.
Because,
Well,
We
I
don't have that much money.
I know some of those areas. I mean, it's incredible. You go from Springwater Corridor, where you've got permanent homeless camps at times, to neighborhoods where you've got zombie houses next to houses that people are still maintaining,
good.
with unpaved roads in between. It's
Scott's been a pleasure.
and then you got access to a bank
Thank
now.
you.
See, he'll be able to share your resume. He'll share your resume up there, okay?
Thank
Good,
you.
good. But gentlemen, this has been really a pleasure.
Great show as
Appreciate it.
usual.
Again, good luck. And we're fortunate to have young folks like yourselves in a place Hey, have a good one. Next week, we're going to have a good one. We're going to talk about, guess what? Front page of the Portland Review. Also, Sanctuary City. The big recession just left.